Good evening. My name is Lisa Steele. I'm the artistic director at V.16, where we acknowledge that we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit River, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. Toronto is in the dish with one spoon territory, which is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations, Métis, and the Inuit peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers to this land have been invited in the spirit of this treaty to friendship and respect. Welcome to the Curatorial Incubator, V.16, Living in Hope, the last of the curatorial incubators of this season. Throughout the fall and early into 2021, we have been hosting 8 different programs that respond to this theme. Since we're fully online, we have posted one title each week on Fridays. And at the conclusion of each curator's program, we host a live Zoom conversation between the curator and the artists. And tonight's conversation is the 8th and the final to take place between our incubatees and their artists. This evening, we are presenting a conversation between incubatee Shalon Webber-Heffernan and the artists Shelley Nero, Sharon Isaac, Prophecy's son. Unfortunately, Ursula Beeman is not able to join us this evening. So I turn it over to you, Shalon.
Thank you for that introduction, Lisa. And I also just wanted to start by thanking you all for being here with me in this Zoom sphere. It's very nice to see you, despite not being able to be in the same room with you. I thought I'd just start off by introducing the bio, a sort of a brief version of each artist in the series bio. And then I'm going to open it up to a more general conversation between us. So Ursula Beeman, who is not here currently, was the first artist in the series. She is an artist, author, video essayist based in Zurich, Switzerland. Her artistic practice is strongly research-oriented and involves fieldwork in remote locations from Greenland to Amazonia, where she investigates climate change, the ecologies of oil, ice, forests, and water. Her video installations are exhibited worldwide, and she has published several books and is a founding member of the collective art and media project World of Matter. Shelley Nero is a member of the Six Nations Reserve Bay of Quinte Mohawk Turtle Clan. A multimedia artist, Nero is conscious of the impact post-colonial media have had on Indigenous people and works to present people in realistic and exploratory portrayals. Some of Nero's films and videos include The Incredible 25th Year of Mitzi Bearclaw, Kissed by Lightning, Honey Moccasin, It Starts with a Whisper, The Shirt, and Robert's paintings. Sorry, having a Zoom moment here. Prophecy's son is an interdisciplinary artist, eco-feminist, movement, video, and sound maker, mother, and I had to change in my bio because it recently said, is a PhD candidate, is a PhD holder as of like a month ago from Simon Fraser University. She performs and exhibits regularly in national and international festivals, conferences, and galleries, and is the recipient of the Governor General's Award and has authored several peer-reviewed articles, book chapters, and journal publications. And lastly, but not leastly, Sharon Isaac is an Anishinaabekwe filmmaker, storyteller, and writer from Saugeen First Nation. Through filmmaking, storytelling, and writing, she works towards restoring and reinterpreting lost cultural knowledge while actively engaging with contemporary cultural practices. She enjoys speaking to young children, adults, elders, and groups of people about stories and legends concerning Ojibwe heritage. So as I said, those are just the brief bios. If we were to get into the full bios, we would be here for hours. So yeah, I thought I'd just start off by kind of revisiting the introduction to this series, because I don't know if everybody was here for that or saw that or heard it. So for those of you who don't know, the series was sort of trying to grapple with themes of intimate practices of care as a way to consider a broader theme of hope, which is what the curatorial incubator was about this year. And it was very much informed by the birth of my daughter, as we were just talking about right before this started. So my daughter was born right before the pandemic happened. And so then the curatorial incubator happened. So I was sort of like in this really weird headspace of being a brand new mother for the first time in a global pandemic, and then trying to think about art and trying to think about hope. And in some ways, it was actually very fertile ground. And all of the artworks in this series, in some ways, kind of grapple with care. And I was thinking about this idea of vulnerability in motherhood as a metaphor, a sort of for practices of care in the world that extend beyond children and that extend towards the earth and to water and to minerals and air, etc. So as I said at the beginning of this session, I introduced each of the works from my own perspective, but I thought I could turn it around and maybe just ask you to talk a little bit about the film that's featured in this series of yours and how it may or may not relate to practices of care which nurture relations that are place-based, interspecies, or otherworldly. And I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to turn it over. So maybe I'll start with you, Shelley, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. My film in this series is called Tree, and it was made in 2007. It was commissioned by Roberto Rigonello from Lift in Toronto, and it was for a project that he was working on. At the time, it was called New Cinema. And Robert passed away shortly after he commissioned that piece. And so I always think about him when I see the piece shown. But the piece itself, like he said, you can work with any kind of film you want. Lift, if nobody knows, everybody knows what Lift is and who Lift is. It's the Liaison of Independent Filmmakers, Toronto. And he presented or proposed to me that I could use any kind of film they had in stock at Lift, and he would also give me $1,000 towards making the film, but the crew had to be very small, and basically everything had to be shot in a day. And I chose to work with 35 millimeter because I hadn't worked with 35 before, and I really wanted to just see, what a grand picture we could get with 35. And so I had the film, had the camera, had Jeff Stern, who was the production manager and production or project, I always get those two mixed up, and Marcos Arriago, who is also the cinematographer. And I forget who we had as the PA. And then we had the actor in the film, who was Lena Recollet. It's been many years since that film got made. So we had Lena as the actor. And with that work, I wanted to really take on having Mother Earth come and visit, her world. And she walks through like downtown Toronto, and in the film itself, we see just little bits and pieces of different types of destruction. Like there's Hiroshima, and there's a fire going on. So it's pretty destructive. And at the end of that film, she has this look on her face like what, how could you, or what happened? So it's it just kind of leaves it like she's a little bit in shock. But I think it was really successful. We had Gail Young as the composer in the piece, and Gail made the soundtrack based on sounds that she was recording and sort of matching up with the picture, and she did a really beautiful job with that. So it's kind of, well, it is poetic, and it's like, I don't know, just kind of a straightforward poem using film as the deliverer of the poem. And I think that's probably all I have to say about that.
Thank you very much. Prophecy, if you wanted to go next.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for those are beautiful descriptions, Shelley, too. And also, like, I'm thinking like the pragmatic things of shooting in one day. That's a lot to take in and a lot to cover and a lot of ground to move across. With my piece, Traces of Motherhood, it was shot on an iPhone, and I was 7 months pregnant with my second child at the time. And for the last 2 years, so my daughter is now 7, and so she was 2 when I was filming that. And so for those 2 years prior, I'd been starting to work with large weather balloons, and there's something about the materiality of it that reminded me a lot of mothering. You could fill them with air. They kind of are like these large breasts moving in space, but also this sense of caretaking and caring for this object that could break at any moment. It's very delicate. And so I started using it in indoor environments. And then with this piece, it was part of a series of works where I started working in the outdoors with the weather balloon. And so in the process of working, I would have my daughter with me, and then the entourage got larger. So then also my partner, and that in that specific shoot, it was my partner and my mother-in-law and my daughter, and so we were all out in a very large field in Abbotsford near Aldergrove in the Fraser Valley. And there's just something about this beautiful large landscape and being able to wander through it that just really, to me, spoke to the sense of like an expansive space where I could just walk and meander. And with my daughter, she, at the time, and Shalon, your daughter's kind of getting to that point now where they just want to start wandering. And so we were always looking for places that I could wander where the balloon wouldn't pop. If I was closer to trees, it would pop. So it was really nice to kind of go out into this space and just kind of play. And so the piece is really one of the first ones where her and I are actually in a piece together, because often she's in the background and you can only hear her crying or yelling or wanting my attention while I'd be running around with these weather balloons. And in this case, she actually was with me, and there's something really special about that. And then the soundtrack itself is a collection of sounds from the environment that again were captured with the phone, and also sounds of myself just sort of singing and humming along in different tones. So that's pretty much a synopsis of that piece.
Thank you so much. Sharon, hello.
Nani, bonjour. Oh, so wonderful to be able to hear the stories of everyone else. Well, Dancing with Nango. It's a short film that we've done, my daughter and I. And the funny thing about it was I retired from education. I was supposed to retire early at 55. And I did. But then I found out all these different venues that I was taking after I retired, and I ended up writing. And I ended up, well, with my beadwork, my craft work, there's so many things that I dabble in, painting. Anyway, what had happened was this group had showed up, and they were willing to teach a bunch of people how to work with film. And they said, "You have a story to tell. Would you be willing to do it?" And so I said, "Yeah, why not? I'll give it a try. I'm always willing to jump into trying new things." So that's how it all started. And it's with, we had to take the film, 60 millimeter. We had to shoot with these old ancient cameras, and we had to do lighting. We had to do everything. And then we had to develop the film. Then we had to edit it. And this was all within a space of about 2-3 weeks. Then they went away, came back, and then we did some more when they came back with the audio and whatever. But Dancing with Nango is a very special story. It's not mentioned in the story, but my daughter, her grandmother passed that year, and so I wrote a poem about her. And anyway, in the poem, like in the story, her grandmother had this rose that would not, it would not bloom. It was a beautiful plant, but it would not bloom. So she ended up giving it to my mother and my daughter. So anyway, on the day of that we were putting her, we had her service and everything. My mother went out. My mother's a horticulturist type of person. She just massive flowers around our house, and she went out to get a flower to make into a boutonniere. And what had happened that day, she went and looked at the rose bush that they've been tending before my grandmother's passing. And it had bloomed that day, and it hadn't bloomed for 6 years, and it finally bloomed that day. So they ended up cutting off a piece, and they put it with her and everything. But my grandmother, her name was Nango, and that means star. And she just loved her granddaughter here, and her granddaughter took it upon herself to start dancing jingle dress. And she was they started dancing from when they were small, all my kids. But my daughter always took a special she always had something in her heart, and she always wanted to dance, and it turned into jingle dress dancing. And she dances, she does healing dances and for other people. She does not go. We do go to competition powers, but she does not dance in the competition. We just go to be nosy, but we do tend to stay in the traditional circle. And it was just, well, I'm kind of biased, but I feel it's just a lovely dedication between the two of them, and all of them really. And then a lot of that, there was a prayer to my daughter in the film, and it was all spoken in Ojibwe. And what else? And I think through the actions and my daughter speaking through the film, it just kind of more or less indicates how she feels about it too.
Thank you so much for that story. That was so beautiful, and I don't think you were being biased, because the film certainly attests to the beauty that you're talking about. Honestly, when I first saw it, it really spoke to me. And I wrote about in the essay, I wrote about the film that the light, there's something about the quality of the light. And you said you only had this short period of time to make this film, but it's...
Yeah, and it's surprising how fast it came together. And then once we made that film, we were bitten by that film bug, and we started making more.
That's amazing. One of the things you brought up, Sharon, and everybody sort of touched on so far, was the actual medium that you used. And I read this about the Saugeen Takes on Film workshop that you mentioned, but I don't know if this is actually true for you. Yes. I read that some of the films were made with hand processing techniques that used flowers instead of chemicals.
Yes, there was a few people that did do that, and then I was learning at the same time like everyone else, and then it was a beautiful process. But I thought the film that my daughter and I did, that would be best just done in the black and white type of aspect. Just, I don't know, for some reason I just liked it the way it was.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I was just curious if that process had entered into, because I have actually never heard of that before and thought it was very beautiful.
And it was so neat. Then there was periods where they would burn the film, and then it was like a crackling effect. And there was just so many, ideas, and so exciting to be able to see that done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And also just wanted to say one other thing about that is the intergenerational process that you show, or the story that you tell in your film, and that you do it through dance, is really beautiful. And it really, the story you're telling of a grandmother and your own daughter, and that relationship and how it carries through time through dancing, to me is very powerful.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I know this is branching off from the film that we do have, but the next one we do, this was the same idea, and that one, it was it touches on the residential system, and how a lot of the culture was taken away from us when we were younger. And I myself was one of the first ones to leave the community, and we were sent off to the nearest town, and I had to go to school for kindergarten, I guess, senior kindergarten. And but at that time, for whatever reason, our parents didn't see to teach us the language, or they didn't see to teach us maybe some people didn't know, I don't know, but I was lucky enough in my family that my mother's family, she stayed on the community, and she was day school. I guess it was a day school that she went to, but her family managed to keep it, whether it was in a secret or whatever. But yeah, so the culture was still strong in our family, but it was hidden until we started asking for it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And language is obviously something that, as you mentioned, like in many ways, I think of it like dance. It's sort of these invisible practices that carry so much.
Yeah.
I thought I'd just bring in Ursula's work because she's not here, and I had a question for her as well. But if you haven't seen it, the work sort of grapples with a Sami diver who is playing a character, and she's sort of listening to the ocean, if you will, and listening to the sounds of the ocean. And one of the questions I had for Ursula was why this choice to listen out of all the senses to the ocean and to hear. And I guess a question I had for everybody is just this practice of attuning, like attunement. How do we listen? And how do your artworks perhaps reflect a process of listening? And I also just wanted to say, Shelley, one of the other questions I had for you was, you mentioned about Tree being a very emotional film for you to watch. And I feel, and I have a different relationship to the film, obviously, but it is very emotional for me to watch as well. And you said that you made this film in 2007, and I feel that it's more resonant than ever now and here in 2021, the sort of like ongoing destruction of the earth. And at the end of the film, the woman, she sort of returns to the earth. She returns to water, and kind of there's a sort of transformation into a tree, if you will. So yeah, I guess I'm kind of just getting at this choice to kind of blend back into the environment.
Yeah, I want to go back to Ursula's film as well. Watching her film, I felt so privileged watching it in, those really beautiful scenes of the ocean and hearing what she was picking up from the ocean. And I just thought, wow, this is really incredible, because, I would never think of doing that, let alone directing myself to see something like that. But having it right in front of my face like that, it was like, it's like magic in a way.
Truly.
Yeah, it's really, I don't know, just kept thinking about it after I saw it. Yeah, Tree is also reminding myself too that I had gone to Nagasaki in that year for the peace ceremony that they hold in Nagasaki, Japan. And so there's a small reference, not to Nagasaki, but to Hiroshima, which I had gone to a few years before that in 2003. But it's just reminding ourselves how horrible we can be to each other if we just let everything just kind of, hate can take over. And this is like the evidence of what can happen. So when I'm looking at Tree, all those little memories do come back. And I don't know, it's just like anytime you make any kind of art, you're investing all your own emotions, your own memories, things people told you, they all go into that making of, So when I'm thinking about something that I've made, it's like I can't put all those thoughts into like one sentence that I'm trying to articulate. So it gets very difficult for me. But I think that's that's the beauty of filmmaking. You can take all those thoughts and all those ideas and you can layer them in such a way that people who are watching it might not know the story behind what they're looking at, but it's up to you as the artist to deliver it in such a way that it makes it interesting enough so that they will stick with it and stick with you and really try to get the vision that you're trying to portray in the work. Sometimes
Yeah,
it works,
absolutely.
sometimes it doesn't.
Well, you bring up some interesting point. Oh, sorry, Prophecy, go ahead.
No, I just think that's so beautiful, and I get really moved by it. I cry on a dime. So just even talking about this notion of everything that's there before or in your memories or unconsciously the things that we hold inside our bodies or others, just these thoughts and these impressions and these traces, I just feel like they're all around. And it's true, as you're saying, Shelley, like the beauty of being able to make something is to be able to just even for a second pull or highlight just an aspect of something that's happened or is happening in that moment. And I just think it's something really beautiful. It's such a privilege to be able to just to do something like that. And I just think it's really lovely, to just be thinking about all these notions of what has come before us and what is here and what is happening in the future. I don't know. I feel like these timelines kind of get mashed together, especially in filmic process and also in sound, and this idea of attuning and being and listening, and not listening just with our ears, but also with our eyes and our limbs and our bodies and just all of our senses, some of the things that we can't even understand. Anyways, I just think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you for that, Prophecy. And yeah, I totally agree. I was going to sort of also say that what you said, Shelley, about like, people you don't really know, you make the work and then you put it out there and you have no idea how that circulates. And these traces, I'm super interested in how these traces of images sort of like, I read something once where somebody said the images press upon me. And that always stuck with me because images, they do that. They kind of just stick with you in stories in these ways that you can't predict. I feel like Prophecy, you sort of also answered the question in your response to Shelley. I wondered if you wanted to expand on that at all, because I know that a lot of your work has to do with attuning in various ways with the earth.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think I guess I come about this in a bunch of different ways and working really interdisciplinary, thinking of like the sonic elements and these layers of movement and layers of different processes that kind of are mashed together. I guess that's, if I was to kind of surmise some of my practice, it's very coming about this from a lot of different angles. But I think that attuning, I think is there, and I'm always grappling with it, but I also have to step back because there's a tension there where I want to invest too much in it and try and dabble and move it around instead of just listening to what is there. And so I'm at a place now where I'm really trying to listen as much as I can in maybe new ways, and really try and think about the privilege of even just being able to listen, because what I hear may be something different, or I may be hearing other frequencies, or using different devices to actually capture sounds. Some things, when you speed them up or slow them down, you can actually hear them. So again, I'm just thinking about the sense of privilege and being able to just listen. And again, I start thinking about attuning is attuning with all these different levels, and it's more about trying not to situate myself, I guess, as much, or push myself into a space. When you're thinking what you were saying, Shalon, about images and pressing, I think about that a lot. I think about the sense of privilege and how I will insert myself in places and spaces, but now I'm trying to step back and let other things maybe organically shape or form around, or with is the big question, instead of it being the center of me. And I feel like I'm speaking in very broken words, but I just feel really moved about all of the work that is part of this program. And I just feel like there's so many beautiful things happening.
I couldn't agree more. And then my light seems to have gone off. I'm completely in darkness.
In the dark.
Hello. I want to thank you all so much for your beautiful work. Thank you, Shalon, for your curatorial direction. It's been extraordinary. And I want to encourage everyone who's watching to stay on the V-Tape website. That Sharon's work, the final Dancing with Nango, will screen immediately following this. And your entire program, Shalon, will be available through next Friday. So we can see all 4 of the projects, and for everybody who's tuning in. And if you haven't seen them, please try to look at them. You've heard a little bit about them, but it's watching them and listening to them that really gives you the feeling of them. And at this moment, and on Friday, April the 2nd, the curatorial incubator V.16 Living in Hope draws to a close.
Thank you. Thank you all so very much. And sorry, that was sort of we didn't really wrap up, but that's okay, because we're going to actually wrap up with Sharon's beautiful film, and I hope everybody will stick around and watch it.
Yeah.
Dancing with Nango is going to play after this.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Mahogany. This is the prayer for Kelsey. Nango square dao. Manda quega dao. Bim widon ka bishop madzit nishnave. Minonigan nikkea wanishayan. Migach shemnido. Not motion wimshkozian. Wimshkoendeman. Nin Donis Dao. Miigwech.
Ani Nangos Krenin Disnakas. Shagin non Dunjaba. I have been lucky enough to be born into a family that was bent on regaining the culture they had lost. From the time I took my first steps, I was welcomed into the dance circle. It was there I learned the steps of a shawl dancer. It was fun and exciting to dance about freely as a butterfly. A dance filled with the optimism of youth. Then I turned into a young woman, and I was blessed with the chance to receive my colors and my Anishinaabe name. During this time of discovery, I was privileged to be given a chance to dance jingle. I dance with the movements that are a brilliant combination of slow and quick steps that timed with the beat of the drum. It is a dance that is visually breathtaking to dance, as it is to watch. When the women jingle dress dancers enter the circle, the rhythmic sound of the jingles is very beautiful, like 10,000 raindrops on a tin roof. With every step, each cone echoing the distinctive sound of healing and prayers. I am a jingle dress dancer.